Good morning, Washington. This is GCRTV Dave on the 22nd of June, 2011. Welcome to Dave TV. Got a little update for you here today. I was reading through one of my favorite radio publications is a thing called the TRI newsletter. Okay, here it is. TRI Tom Taylor, who's a really good guy. Radioinfo.com pens this little newsletter and hits your mailbox every morning at like 4 a.m. It's it's probably one of the best, I think, radio business newsletters out there. But anyhow, one of the big stories of yesterday was the fact that Emmis, which is a big radio company, they used to own WAVA here in Washington way back when. They're going to be selling a bunch of their stations, The Loop in Chicago, which is a classic rocker, WKQX in Chicago, which is an alt rocker, and especially WRXP, which is one of my favorite stations. I listen to it all the time on the web, and when I'm up in the New York area, it's 101.9. It's a really cool kind of a alt rockish station with a great mix of rock music on there. It hasn't gotten great ratings anyway, but anyhow, Emmis is selling these three stations to a new group called Merlin Media, which is headed by this dude, Randy Michaels, who's he's been all over the place, Tribune and all that stuff, but he's a big radio exec he's known a lot of, he's been with Clear Channel and a whole bunch of other big companies. But anyhow, getting to the point, one of the things that he's planning to do with WRXP is to turn it into a news station. So if you read Tom Taylor's thingy-dingy here, it says it's likely to take WRXP to a news talk format, and this time the target is CBS with its blue ribbon connection to franchises, including 1010 Wins, CBS AM in New York City, a new younger skewing news station that some talk might inflict a little pain on, the fan, Citadel Talker WABC, Berkeley Talker WOR, blah, 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 that they say may also be in his site. So a news talk format skewing young. Okay? Interesting. And he's also hired some folks from Howard 100 or Howard Stern's station over there on Sirius XM. So be interesting to see what he does with that. But I think I wanted to translate that into what that might mean for Washington. As I say, we don't have any Emmis stations here in Washington. Okay? But we recently reported that Steve Swenson is here in Washington. He's the new head of CBS Radio in Washington. CBS Radio, if you look at yesterday's radio ratings, CBS still doesn't even have a top 10 station in the market, okay? Looking at, we posted them here on the website. There they are. And if you look here, number one is TOP. 2 is MZQ, that's Clear Channel. 3, TOP is Hubbard. Clear Channel owns MZQ. AMU is American University. Hot 99.5 and Wash are both owned by Clear Channel. That's 4 and 5. HUR is owned by Howard. MMJ is owned by Radio 1. RQX is Citadel. Number 9, Big, is Clear Channel. 10 is Radio 1. And WETA-FM is locally owned. You don't get to the first CBS station until you get to 12. There's PGC. So you got PGC in 12th. That's a CBS station. You got Fresh 94.7 WIAD in 15th. And then you've got JFK way down here in 21st. WLZL in 18th. Those are CBS's major FM stations in the market. And the highest rated is 12th. And that's not new. That's been going on for quite a while. CBS has 4 major FM stations in the Washington market. And frequently, none of them make the top 10. Now, the CBS execs counter by saying, well, we target niche our stations, and if you look at the women's ratings or you look at the men-only 25-54, they're in the top 10, and it's true. WJFK does place in the top 10 in the men-only ratings, but still, the 12-plus numbers, which is the beauty contest, is an interesting way of judging a station's overall success. And if you have 4 major FMers in a market, and none of them on a regular basis are in the top 12, the top 10 in the 12 pluses, something's wrong. So I think Randy Michaels is onto something here. News talk stations geared to young audiences. One of the things I have always said is I really think CBS ought to start an all-new station in the Washington market. I've always said that. CBS owns all new stations and talk stations in Boston, in New York, and Philly, and they don't own anything down here in that format. And one of the reasons why is because other players are doing it. You have Hubbard, formerly Bonneville, doing WTOP, and they've done a damn good job of it. In fact, it's like when you look at the built-in advertising ratings, they're huge leads for WTOP. But it just makes sense. Somebody's got to attack that. If somebody's got somebody's got, triple the revenue of the second billing station in the market, somebody's got to go after that. Just to sit back and say, no, we're going to go for the scraps over here. We're going to put an ossified classic rock format over here. We're going to go for the little piddly money, and we're going to try to beat Big or whatever. Why not go after the big guy? You can run I really think you could run a news talk station, or even an all-news station in Washington without putting a lot of money, super lot of money into it. Granted, it's going to be more money than doing a music format, but there are ways of doing that without spending one thing WTOP does, bless their heart, is they do put a lot of money into their programming. They have a huge news department and a huge staff in that glass enclosed nerve center and lots of reporters, and that's wonderful, and it sounds like it, and it's a wonderful station. But honestly, I really think you could do an all-news format without spending a tenth as much as TOP spends if you want to do it just simply to be a shark to go after WTOP's revenue. So that's what I'm thinking Steve Swenson ought to do, is take a page from Randy Michaels' book and say, Randy's onto something here. With WRXP and the WKQX in Chicago, turning those FM signals into newsy talk stations aimed at young people. Maybe that's what he ought to be doing here in D.C. Maybe that's what he ought to be doing in 94.7. 94.7 Fresh FM has been on the air for 2 years, and it's okay. It gets okay ratings, but it's going up against a bunch of other chicky stations like WASH and Hot 99.5 and Mix 107.3. Maybe it's time to say, let's take 94.7 in a completely different direction. It's got a good signal. It covers the market. Maybe it's time to give TOP a little challenge. CBS knows all news formats. It's not a stranger to it. It runs them all over the place. And Steve Swenson is a guy who knows all news formats because he's run WCBS AM in New York and wins. It just seems to me the cards are suddenly now all in place. The stars are in place here for something really, really interesting to happen on 94.7. Now, he could do it on some of other CBS's other frequencies, but 99.1 doesn't have a good inside the beltway signal. 95.5 is kind of a heritage station, and it is still the second top billing station in the market. You don't want to blow that one up. And 106.7 with Sports Talk, that's come down from on high. CBS wants to run it. It's doing okay. And again, that's not a great signal inside the beltway. So 94.7 is where you look. It'd be interesting to see if Steve Swenson does do something interesting. And I mean, news talky kind of interesting. Now, you might say, DC, we already got too many news talk stations that we do. We got news, we got lots of talk all over the place. We got American University's WAMU. So you might say, okay, maybe we don't need another news talk. But this is a wonky mark. I don't know. Maybe even something like political radio might be good down here. Really heavily based political talk station, not one like WMAL that just leans to one side. I don't know. Some interesting ponderings for this wonderful Wednesday morning here in Washington. So anyhow, that's that. So we'll see. I think, anyhow, Swenson, 94.7, that's your baby. Show your balls. Show us you got balls. Don't show us your balls. Show us that you got balls. Do something wacky with it. Let's make some fun stuff here in Washington. All right, folks. That's the big news. What other big news is going on? It's kind of a slow period here in late June. I think a lot of people are getting ready for the big 4th of July holiday. Gannett, wonderful Gannett is going to be cutting 700 in its community publishing division. There aren't any Gannett newspapers in the Washington area apart from USA Today, which is a national paper, and that already went through a round of cuts, so there shouldn't be any more cuts there. But a lot of those poor journalists and folks that work at those Gannett papers all around the country are not going to have a very pleasant summer. All right, folks, that's my Dave TV for today. Have a good one, and don't forget to stay tuned.